Okay, Dominaria draft time. Although the format's been out for a long time, I'm still enjoying it. It's still a really kind of deep, involved format with a lot of kind of interesting play. And it's been kind of cool to see how it's developed over time. It feels like people know what's good in general, and so you'll get some people who are kind of trying to do the crazy, silly thing, but you'll also get people who are just very good at finding their archetypes. One of the things that means is it's kind of hard to get a clean deck. You often have to piece together kind of bits of an archetype this late in the format, where you've got a couple of bombs and a couple of 2 or 3 card synergies, but I've found it's pretty rare at this stage to get a clean archetype all the way through. Like, I haven't had blue-red wizards in an absolute age. I've had a lot of like black-green, but without Slimefoot or without one of the big payoffs, and I've had to kind of eke out wins, which has been interesting. It's very different than it was early on. Out of this pack, Shall I Voice of Plenty is potentially a Stone Cold Bomb. Ship of Fire is the only other card I would be thinking about. But I'm happy to go with Shall I Voice of Plenty. You play it in all your white decks. It's hard to deal with. Your opponent has to deal with it. And if you get it in green, then so much the better for you. So out of this pack, there's a couple of things that I think have potential. Call the Cavalry works nicely with Shall I, especially if you're in white-green, you're doing the go-wide thing. Llanowar Elves is a good baseline card. This early in the draft, though, and especially if I'm pairing it with white and with something that's already a legendary, I'm happy to go after something like Karn's Temporal's Sundering. The legendary sorceries are high risk, high reward. I did run into someone recently who was playing like 4 different ones in their deck, and they had a bunch of legends to enable them, and it was pretty sweet, actually. It worked brilliantly. I was never able to completely turn off their legends, and they just kept hitting me with these massive 2-for-1 haymakers. So I'm happy to try that, see if I can get to make it work. So we passed a Ship and Fire in pack 1. Now we have one here in pack 3. And it's probably going to be the pick. Deep Freeze, I like a fair amount, actually. I especially like it in white-blue. I think if you can back Deep Freeze up with flyers, it's basically unconditional removal. Yeah, your opponent can bounce it and things like that, but then, they're not bouncing something else. So just don't stick it on stuff with ETB effects, and you're kind of okay. Grow from the Ashes I also like generally, but I don't like it more than I like Ship and Fire. So we haven't settled into our colors yet. I think taking the removal spell is just correct here. So we've got Damping Sphere, we've got Yargle, we've got Mammoth Spider. Macy Unicorn is fine as 2-drops go. Vodalian Arcanist is better than not. I may just take the Spider, though, which, yes, puts me into a 4th color, but it kind of works with Shall I. I suppose if I want to avoid going into that 4th color, then I take Macy Unicorn. But I think going into green here, there's still a chance I can splash pretty easily out of green, and I'm happy to go with that chance. Nothing that I'm wild about in this pack. Diligent Excavator is kind of its own archetype, and not an especially good one. It's interesting that it's in the same pack as Homeroot Explorer, so if someone really wants to force mill, they can kind of take one and hope to wield the other. Gideon's Reproach is a main deckable removal spell. It kills almost everything in the format, and in general, I like it a lot. Okay, this is a pretty late Llanowar Elves, and there's also a Primordial Worm and a Thorn Elemental. Probably don't wheel those out of this pack, but an Elves this late is a pretty good sign that Elves are there to be played, and they follow it with another Llanowar Elves. So we've got a good chance of moving up the scale here. Board the Weatherlight, I've seen played once in this format, and it whiffed. Weight of Memory is a nice draw spell, but Alien Arcanist, there's nothing else to take here. Yeah, Elves are fine. And a late Saphrid, so green really looks like it's glowing. There's also a Memorial to Genius. I know that a lot of the pros are valuing these spell lands very, very highly and would see this as a sign that blue is open at this stage. I haven't found that that sign holds up always in online draft queues. So I'm not reading that as a sign that blue is really wide open. I think mostly people are hoping to wheel the spell lands these days. And that may not be correct, but it's what I'm seeing. So I'm going to act accordingly. Alright, so green seems definitely open, but Gaia's Protector is pretty terrible. Sarah's Disciple doesn't always make my deck unless I have reasons to stick it in the deck, although it is a flyer, it wears auras and things nicely. I don't mind having one in the pile. There's an Arcanist, there's an Excavator, there's a Corrosive Ooze. So how far are we away from blue? Pretty far, like if we're splashing out of green-white. I'd rather not double splash in draft. And none of these are cards that would make it if I am splashing, so I'll take the Corrosive Ooze in case I need more 2-drops. And once or twice I've found Corrosive Ooze has actual purposes against flyers. Not flyers, against equipments. Although it's a bad answer to them. I really don't want a second Corrosive Ooze, so I guess I'll take the Elephant as a creature which is at least a different kind of creature I don't want. I'll take the Arcane Flight. If I do end up with a blue splash, Arcane Flight could make it if we've got big, beefy green and white creatures. There's a non-zero chance that I should be moving into green-blue and splashing Shall I? Something to think about, depending on what's open here. So let me call that a little bigger. Let's see how we roll. Let's move these back in, just to get a sense of where we're at. Varric's Bladewing is a fine card, not a splashable card, unfortunately. Or settle the score. So we've got two pretty solid cards that we're just not in a position to play. Well, there's a Pegasus Courser, which is a very good card to have in green-white in particular. I'm probably going to see either Thorn Elemental or Baloth Gorger coming back out of this pack, and Pegasus Courser pairs nicely with either of those. This is a card that has just gone up and up and up in my estimation. We've got a Gorger, we've got a Saproling Migration. Saproling Migration plus Shall I is kind of a you in the game situation, so happy to go with that. Those first two picks put us a lot more solidly in green-white than we were. So, is this what we're looking at the moment? Well, Sport Ground Talent's pretty fine. Still not seeing a lot of ways to splash going here. Vicious Kavu's a very fine 2-drop. I'll play that certainly over Corrosive Ooze, probably over Sarah Disciple. Interesting. I may take Joyra here. So my logic is green seems to be flowing a lot more than white. Blue seems to be flowing. Joyra is a pretty solid card with high upside. We pick up 1 or 2 more historic cards, and it gives us another way of playing Archon's Temporal Sundering. Let's go back to sort by converted mana cost. We might be moving to a situation where we're just splashing for Shall I, maybe for Pegasus Courser and Reproach. Sarah's Disciple probably doesn't make the deck in any configuration at the moment. I think all our green 2-drops are better. But we could end up in a kind of 4-color situation. Green, blue, splash red, splash white. He says optimistically with no splash sources yet. Asked and answered. Yeah, Grow from the Ashes is looking like a card that is just going to be strictly necessary for this deck. There's an adventurous impulse to dig a little deeper. There's also a broken bond, and the artifacts are not irrelevant with Joyra kicking around. I think I'm just going to take the broken bond. There's no guarantee we see white artifact and enchantment removal, and I really, really do hate not having one of these in my deck at this stage. The last draft deck I had was incredibly sweet. It was one of these where I had to cobble together a win condition. And it was green-black splashing blue for the saga that brings back instants and sorceries from your graveyard. And it was just a beautiful deck, like an incredible long game. It also had Muldrotha the Gravetide in it. And between those two things, no matter how far I got beaten down, I could just come back and back and back. But the one thing the deck didn't have was something like a Broken Bond. There was no artifact or enchantment removal. Game 3 of the final of that draft, turn 4, my opponent plays Helm of the Host. Sort of thing. Well, if I don't draw my removal in the next turn and kill whatever you play, then we're done, because I have to go through a lot of effort to set up my incredible recursion engine. You literally just have to keep a creature alive. And that indeed was what happened. It was a sad way to finish that incredible league where my deck just was so sweet. So yeah, I mean, that's a particular feel-bad version of it, but there are a lot of games where if you don't have an answer to their key enchantment or their key artifact at the right time, then you're not getting out of it. Okay, yeah, this is the card I was referring to, the Mirari Conjecture. I like it enough that I'm considering it even here. So I've got sorcery, instant, sorcery, sorcery, maybe instant. It's marginal, but it's powerful enough that I'm tempted to just go for it here. And that's a very late Memorial to Genius, which I will happily pick up. So we're definitely moving into a more kind of late-game, value-oriented plan. Mirari Conjecture also has the benefit of triggering Joyra. And we're in a 4-color situation, so because of the combination of getting a trigger for Joyra, of fixing across potentially 3 colors, we go hard at base green, I'm going to take that. And I'll grab a Voltaic Servant, which is another potential Joyra trigger. Grab a Rescue and a Pierce the Sky, which will almost certainly be main decking. Okay. So it's looking jankier so far than it has. We're not honing in on anything except green here. But that's okay. Excavator I don't think belongs on the deck. Well, there's a lot of hot garbage here. So there's a Mammoth Spider, which I like. Also a Syncopate, and there's a Divination, which I think actually is my pick here. Divination draws you cards. It helps to fix your mana, sort of, in that it draws you defense and fix your mana. it's not a bad place to be. Well, Ralph Capuchin. He's as splashable as Joyra. We've got another Spore Crime Fellow, but we're not that deep on Saprolinks. I think I'll take Raph. And probably the second Grow here. So our card advantage suite is building up nicely. 2 copies of Grow, plus the Compass. I think we're okay. Alright, so there's a Marwyn. Marwyn, again, triggers Joyra. I'm going to take Spore Swarm here. So I'm partially thinking about Mirari Conjecture, not wanting to miss with it. And I'm partially thinking about the fact that I've got Shellai and I've got Saproling Migration, and I want to be able to take advantage of a bunch of 1/1s. Okay, well, Joyra's Familiar seems okay. There's also an Invoke the Divine, so there's some superior artifact and enchantment removal. I might take the Familiar here. I do have a Broken Bond already, and Invoke the Divine would be played on the splash, which isn't necessarily where I want to be with the card and need to be able to cast. And I think Blood Tallow Candle looks okay, although I could also see an argument for Primordial Worm. Could I play the Candle over the Compass now that I've got both Grow from Ashes? I'm going to take the Worm though, just because we don't have a finisher at this stage. Carnstone Sundry can be a finisher, but only if you're ahead when you cast the extra turn bit of it. And I've seen plenty of people play this card, and although it looks good, mainly what it's doing is buying them another turn to dig for an answer, and that's not really where you want to be. So I haven't had that many Joyra's Familiar decks. The 4-mana 2/2 flyer is just not that exciting on its own. You've got to be getting value out of that mana reduction to make it worthwhile, but this might be there. If it saves you a couple of mana, that's fine, and it's still an evasive threat in a format where evasive threats are pretty good. So there's another Primordial Worm. There's also a Befuddle. Befuddle might be okay. It's a way to stall an opponent and stay alive. Another Divination, and there's a Baloth Gorger. I do like Gorger, but I feel like actually it's probably a little irrelevant for us here. I'm going to take the second Divination. I'm going to lose the Navigator's Compass there. Follow the Throne? Sure. This is going to be interesting. I don't think I played both Llanowar Elves just because it's such a dead card later on in the game. I don't want to cut too many bodies here. Armament, sure. Probably cut Arcane Flight. And just be a little straighter about this. Yeah, I've got nothing going on here. I suppose Short Sword. We've already got an Arbor Armament on the board. I'll take the Short Sword in case we find we just need more triggers. And Artificer's Assistant. Okay, so we still have a couple of cuts to make here. Probably we don't need Voltaic Servant. Joyra might just be a little bit greedy, but I feel like I do want to play Shivering Fire. And if I'm doing that, then Joyra's kind of a free splash. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. So let's see how this all lines up. Approach, Broken Bond, Pierce the Sky, and counting Saproling Migration as a creature for all intents and purposes. Befuddle, Divination, Divination. Grow. Spore Swarm again, basically a creature. Mirari Conjecture, Karn's Temporal Sundering. Okay, so we can't get Karn's Temporal Sundering back with Mirari Conjecture, which is kind of sad. But we've got a bunch of different sorceries, and we've got a few different instants to play with here as well. That's a reason to play Befuddle here, actually. But it's another thing we can get back with Mirari Conjecture. Okay, I'm going to lose the Voltaic Servant because it doesn't really synergize with anything else in the deck. We're up to 24. I might just lose the Elves. They do help us ramp, but we're not kind of a straightforward ramp deck. Alright, so we are kind of counting on using our Grow from the Ashes to find our other sources here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another island. All of our spells take islands, and we do have a double cost. So I think, yes, I want one more island rather than one more forest. And I think that's what we're going to register. It looks a little bit tenuous, but it should be capable of some really powerful things if we get our mana online. One of the things I'm trying to work on here is taking the draw a lot more often. I found that just with the interface on Magic Online, I'm kind of almost auto-clicking on, yes, I will play first when given the option. And it's frequently not correct to do that in this format. I think it's definitely not correct to do it in this deck. We got our 2-drops, we've got our sort of early interactive stuff. Our removal is based on a splash, so I don't think we can say we are well set up to deal with aggro, but there's not a ton of aggro in the format. So we're going to come back in a little bit and see what we can make happen with this deck. I hope you join us. Alright, see you soon.